What's up, everybody? This is Big Chooch. This is going to be my video response to Shaun Blackford. First, let me give a shout out to WWE DVD News.com for this image that I'm going to show, and another one of my top 10 that I do not have the physical disc of, but I'll show you some stuff. But I'm going to try and make this quick. You guys can come to WWEDVDnews.com to check out the match listings of some of the DVDs that are going to be in my top 10 and Blu-rays. But the reason I'm showing this unreleased 2-disc set that hasn't come out, it's coming out in a month, is because Shaun Blackford has The Rise and Fall of ECW as his number 1. It is not in my top 10. And this is a huge reason why. Because the match listings are terrible. But this disc right here, let me tell you, any match that's worth watching in ECW is pretty much on this disc. You got Shane Douglas versus Too Cold Scorpio, Tommy Dreamer versus Raven, Malenko, Scorpio versus Taz and Eddie Guerrero, Malenko versus Eddie Guerrero, Shane Douglas versus Cactus Jack, Jericho versus Scorpio, Rob Van Dam and Sabu versus the Eliminators, Shane Douglas versus Bam Bam, Sabu and Rob Van Dam versus Jinsei Senjaki and Hayabusa, Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn, Shane Douglas versus Taz, Lance Storm and Just Incredible versus Van Dam and Jerry Lynn, Awesome versus Tanaka, Taz and Tommy Dreamer, Tommy Dreamer and Just Incredible, Rhino and Sandman, Rhino and Spike Dudley, Jerry Lynn York, and the list goes on. This is going to be an absolutely phenomenal DVD and will be in my top 10 when it comes out. But that is why The Rise and Fall of ECW, his number 1, is not even in my top 10. And at number 10, we have Shawn Michaels, The Heartbreak and Triumph. You can check out the match listings on WWEDVDnews.com. But if you're a fan of professional wrestling, you need to have a Shawn Michaels collection in your top 10. WrestleMania 17, or as I like to call this spot, the pay-per-view of your choice. Whatever your favorite WrestleMania is, or favorite pay-per-view, put it in this spot. WrestleMania 13 would be in my top 5 if they had a DVD, but they do not, other than in a set, because DVDs weren't available then, but had it. This would probably be out of my top 10, to be honest with you, but since that's one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. Woo! The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, coming in at number 8. You can check out the match listings, like I said, on WWEDVDnews.com. I'm going to give them a lot of plugs because that's a great website for DVD and Blu-ray information. So yeah, Ric Flair, arguably one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, definitely needs to be in. And here's one that Shaun does not have in his. So far, those 3 were in his top 10. WrestleMania 20. And not because WrestleMania 20 was a great pay-per-view event. I mean, it was good. But this is a 3-disc set. And on the 3rd disc, you have the Mania of WrestleMania documentary, which on its own could have been released as a DVD, and it is absolutely awesome. And then you have WrestleMania's 10 greatest matches ever, the Bret Hart Stone Cold submission match, Rock versus Hogan, Steamboat versus Savage, Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels ladder match, the Triangle ladder match, Dudley's versus Hardy's versus Edge and Christian, Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels Iron Man match, Kurt Angle versus Benoit, Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, Stone Cold versus Shawn Michaels, and then Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. That's the 3rd disc extra. The 2nd disc has the Hall of Fame, other extras, promos and stuff, and then the 1st disc is the actual matches, where WrestleMania 20, you saw Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. You saw Chris Jericho versus Christian, Big Show versus John Cena, Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution. Yeah. Absolutely an awesome event. So definitely have to check that out. Number 6. Mr. Perfect. This is another one not in Shaun's top 10. I do not have Chris Jericho's disc in my top 10. I'm not the biggest Jericho fan. He's a good worker, but arguably this is the best worker in professional wrestling. Top 2 or 3 at least. This is the only wrestling-related DVD that made me shed a tear. Not embarrassed to say, especially the end of his documentary. Very emotional. It was absolutely an outstanding documentary of the life and the death of Mr. Perfect. Not to mention the matches. He has a couple extra him versus Bret Hart matches that aren't on Bret's DVD. Between the two of them, I think he pretty much covered all of the televised matches. They have their first match from Madison Square Garden on Mr. Perfect's disc, not on Bret's. And then you have his match against Bret in WCW, uncensored, on this disc. Not to mention his AWA stuff. Absolutely must have for any wrestling fan in a top 10. You need arguably the best work, and it has all his vignettes that he did before coming to WWE or WWF. You know, the golfing, the darts, and all that stuff. They have every single one. And next on my list is The King of the Ring. Now, I don't have this disc yet. It's on its way. I got it off of WWE Shop for $12, but I saw the Netflix, and it was absolutely awesome. You can see the full match listing on WWEDVDnews.com, but just run through Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna was awesome. Owen Hart versus Razor Ramon. Then you have the Stone Cold stuff, of course. You have the Hell in a Cell Undertaker throwing Mankind off of the top of the cage. You have Kurt Angle throwing Shane McMahon through the glass thing. You have Kurt Angle versus Edge. King Booker. King Sheamus, and then the Blu-ray exclusives. Triple H versus Undertaker. Kurt Angle versus Orton. CM Punk versus Jericho. Del Rio versus Daniel Bryan. And Austin versus Mark Merrow. That is absolutely awesome to have. So that is number 5. Number 4. Another one Shaun does not have in his top 10. The Randy Macho Man Savage collection. Ooh, yeah. Dig it. I'm a huge fan of Macho Man. If you're not a fan of Macho Man, you won't want this in your top 10, because it's his career, basically, in 3 discs. You can check out the full match stuff on WWE DVD News, but must have. Number 3. Hurry this up, it's almost at 10 minutes. Damn, I'm a rambler. Bret Hart, arguably the best worker in professional wrestling history. It's a great photo. I wish I had an 8x10 of that. That looks awesome. You can check out the full match listing, but he has tons of matches on this disc, or this set. Number 2. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Oh, hell yeah. Check out the match listing. Me and Shaun agree on this, number 2. But number 1, Shaun's not even in his top 10. Boom. Greatest rivalries, Shaun versus Bret. Awesome documentary. If you were a wrestling fan during this event, during this era, you know why it's number 1. It changed the business for me. I started going to the dirt sheet websites after this to find out what was going on. You know, it really exposed. I mean, I knew professional wrestling was a show, but it really exposed a lot about the business after this happened. At least to me, I was in my teens when this happened. Huge event, and to have them sit down today after what happened, I mean, just look at all the stuff that happened in between the death of Owen, Shaun retiring, Bret getting concussion. It's just an amazing story that I'm glad was told. And I'm glad they were able to sit down. If you do not have this, you need to definitely have it as an artifact of the history of the WWE for sure. So that's it, everybody. That's my top 10. I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank Shaun Blackford for being the inspiration for the top 10 list. Take it easy, everybody. It's Big Chooch.